As a hairstylist, not only are you a business owner, but now you're an investor, a real estate investor, and you're investing in yourself.
You own the real estate, you're getting the tax benefits, you can produce passive cash flow from them if you wanted to move away in lots of different ways. I just think people sort of forget that wealth goes way beyond earning money and a paycheck.
I always wanted to be in the beauty industry. My parents wouldn't let me go to cosmetology school. I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is crazy. Why am I doing this? Literally, I gathered my things. I went and signed up for beauty school that day. It's not an accident when you become a six-figure hairstylist. We just gave you the blueprint. All you gotta do is follow it.
When you find out you've made a bad hire, tell me about how you handle that.
One of my mentors, Luke Jacobellis, told me this early in my career. He said, hire slow, fire fast.
Welcome to the Millionaire Hairstylist, where our mission is to improve the financial well-being of creative professionals. And our guest today is salon and beauty school owner NeCole Cumberlander. There is not a lot in the beauty industry that NeCole has not done. She was a national educator for John Paul Mitchell Hair Systems. She started behind the chair. She then founded her own Paul Mitchell School, added a second location, relaunched her salon. She has coached and mentored and guided hundreds of salon professionals and beauty professionals throughout her career, and has so much to share with us today about hiring, management, partnerships, business, and much, much more. You will not walk away from this episode without something you can apply in your salon, in your hair business, in your creative professional career today. Here's NeCole Cumberlander on The Millionaire Hairstylist. When people say, tell us your story, what do you say? What is the story of NeCole Cumberlander?
You know, that's interesting. I just say I'm a beauty industry rat, you know? And, you know, some people are gym rats. I'm a beauty industry rat. You know, I've been in this industry for almost 35 years now.
Wow.
And literally I have started from very beginning. I started with Paul Mitchell 6 months after I graduated from beauty school. And 35 years later, I'm still here.
Wow.
So, yeah, I literally have done anything you can think about doing in this industry. I've done it. And that's what makes my story. That's exactly what makes my story. It
is so cool that you have spent time as an educator. And I think that gives you such a unique perspective. How did you get into wanting to be involved in the education side of the industry?
You know, funny story. I was in beauty school and Paul Mitchell educator. Paul Mitchell obviously was very, very new at that time. And an educator came to our school, and, you know, there were no such thing as Paul Mitchell schools at that time. So I went to your typical mom and pop beauty school, and this really cool young lady, she had like awesome hair and cool clothes, and she was doing this fabulous hair, and she had this stage presence that was just amazing and captivating. And literally, I'm in beauty school, like sitting on the edge of my seat, just salivating and holding on to every word this woman said. And afterwards, I went up to her and just told her how much I enjoyed her presentation, and, you know, how do I do what you're doing? And, you know, she told me, and she gave me her phone number and told me to keep in touch. And I did. And literally, the rest is history. You know, it's all about relationships, because clearly I was not, you know, I didn't have nearly the skills that it took to be a Paul Mitchell educator, but I had people in my corner that believed in me. And, you know, I tell my students all the time how important it is, number one, relationships. And number two, whatever it is that you're doing, be the best at it. You know, if you're sweeping hair, be the best floor sweeper you can be. If you're folding towels, fold those towels. If you're holding those foils, hold them to perfection, you know, because you never know who's watching you, and everybody is always watching. You know, the guy that I was assisting actually was invited by Paul Mitchell to try out to be a Paul Mitchell educator. And I was his assistant, and I had told him what my dreams were, to be a Paul Mitchell educator. And when he told them, you know, yeah, sure, I'd do it. He said, I have an assistant. She's a young kid, just graduated from beauty school not too long ago, but she just told me that her dream is to be a Paul Mitchell educator. Can I bring her? Now, he never would have even thought of that if I was not on my game sweeping hair or folding towels or shampooing or being on time or looking the part. None of that. I was just an assistant and got that opportunity. So I tell my students that story all the time because it's so important how you show up.
So true. And we say often to people, a common quoted phrase these days is how you do anything is how you do everything. And so it's basically when you show up and do the little stuff, it's an indicator to how you'll do the big stuff. And if you're even ready for it, I couldn't agree more. I think it's a value that you have to have, the commitment to excellence. And it sounds like when you got into this, you had to exhibit quite a bit of courage in just putting yourself out there and being like, I don't have the competence to do this yet, but I want to do this. Show me how to do that. And I think that's a critical component in pursuing, what you've pursued, because you have to start with courage. I guess you gotta like put yourself out there. What made you think that you could even do it?
Ignorance is bliss. I just didn't think that, like somebody's got to do it. Why not me?
I love that mindset. That's so true.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to do it. Why not you?
It's funny. I left college. I was enrolled at Ohio State my sophomore year of college. And I can remember like it was yesterday. I was sitting in a lecture hall and I was a communications major and I had no idea why. I always wanted to be in the beauty industry. My parents wouldn't let me go to cosmetology school when I was in high school. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is crazy. Why am I doing this? And literally, I gathered my things and left like I was walking out of church. Excuse me, pardon me. And I went and signed up for beauty school that day.
Wow.
Yeah, that day.
How long until you told your parents?
It was about 2 weeks.
That's still pretty brave. I mean, it seems like just from these two short stories, commitment and courage are two things that you're not short on. And I know that's probably played a huge role in your success.
Well, thank you.
So connect the dots from the intention to want to teach to then owning a Paul Mitchell school. How does that story go from one place to the next?
You know what? You don't know what you don't know. And back to the power of relationships. I was, a Paul Mitchell educator and worked my way up. I did platform work and all of that. And that's where he and I met. Wynn was a motivational speaker. He would open up a lot of our shows with motivation, and then we would come out and do our show. And so we spent a lot of time behind stage, talking and waiting. But we always talked about the industry. I had a salon at that time. I had a salon and he had a salon. So we always talked about, how we could make our businesses better. And it was always on a positive note. And it always ended with, we just got to have better schools. We need better schools. And so fast forward, I was actually the president of TSA. At that time, it was TSA. Now it's PBA. But I was president and we were at symposium and Wynn came up, he said, hey, I got to talk to you. You got to come see what we're doing. And I went to California and saw the school and in Costa Mesa. That was really the first Paul Mitchell school, and was blown away. And he said, NeCole, you get it. You understand education. You understand the need for better education in this industry. Like, you got to do it. And I'm like, say less. I'm on. So what are we doing? Just show me. Tell me what to do. So,
what school in the series of schools? I remember the Costa Mesa school. I lived in Costa Mesa for a short time. And that school was like, you look at it and you're like, wow. When you started this, it's quite a long time ago. How many schools were there? I mean, were you sort of like one of the first pioneers to take the franchise movement?
It was 5 schools at that time.
Five schools at that time.
How many are there now?
Yeah,
just
at
for
that
reference.
time, it really was just the one, but there were 4 other schools that were in process. So we were number 5.
Wow. I think there's over 130 now. Is that correct?
Yes.
That right?
Yeah. 2,530, somewhere around that number. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible
So we're celebrating 20 years this year.
And that's still the school that you started is still in operation in Ohio?
It is. Absolutely. Yeah. As a matter of fact, we're building building out a new location to move this building, to move this location into a new building.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
You know, NeCole, a lot of our listeners and a lot of our members are salon owners. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about in this conversation, I think they're going to relate to. I think owning a Paul Mitchell school is probably something that's pretty unique, obviously, for you as a business owner, as a stylist. How has owning and operating a school, how has that affected your perspective as a stylist, as a salon owner, as a business person?
Wow. You know what? They're so different. Naive little me thought, oh yeah, I can open a school. How different is it from owning a salon? Well, not too different. Night and day. Two completely different skill sets, believe it or not.
Sure.
Yeah. And, it's, of course, both of them are about systems and running an efficient business. A school is a business at the end of the day, just like a salon is a business at the end of the day. So they're very similar in that regard. But, education, you've got to make it make sense. I had a very different perspective of my expectation of schools as a salon owner. As a salon owner, I'm thinking these kids should graduate. They should be able to come to my salon and understand how to cut hair and, understand color and da. And so I was very frustrated, I'll be honest, with schools as a salon owner. And then when I became a school owner, I realized, okay, it takes 10,000 hours to perfect a skill. I understand that. I got 1,500 to introduce a bunch of skills to these kids, let alone help them master and understand it. So it's a very different shift in mindset from a school owner's perspective, because not only do you have to make sure that these kids understand and are introduced to cutting, color, texture, working with all different types of hair, how to retail, how to understand the business of building a salon, building a clientele, customer service, the soft skills, all of those things that as a salon owner, you want that stylist to be proficient at once they get to you, but then you only got 1,500 hours. And then you add on top of that the regulations that go along with that, teaching these kids how, not to borrow too much money because it's going to affect you in the long run. And then you're talking about placement. You want to make sure you're placing them in the right salon so that they're there for a long period of time and they have a profitable career. And then you're talking about gainful employment and, all those other things that you have to deal with as a school owner. So the long answer to your short question was it changed my perspective quite a bit, because now as a school owner, I understand there's so many other things that I have to pay attention to and focus on. And I had to learn how to manage my expectation of what that future professional is really going to get once they graduate. So on their first day of school, I go into their class and I help them manage their expectation. Like, you are not going to be an expert at anything here. What we are going to do is prepare you to pass state board, first of all. And second of all, we're going to give you a solid foundation to have a successful career. Now, those other hours after the 1,500 that you get to reach to those 10,000 hours, it's going to be on you once you graduate from here. You have to be a lifelong learner in this industry. It does not stop here. This is just the very beginning.
Now, you being in education and kind of changing the outcome of students and their futures from what it used to look like 20 years ago, where, you might go to a small private school, and now you have these mega schools like Paul Mitchell, who with crafted curriculum that's powerful. We still have people in the industry, salon owners, our students, members, who we hear say often, no newbies. I can't take the newbies. What would you say to somebody who's recruiting for people in their salon and they don't want to work with newbies?
I would say, you know what? You're missing out. You're missing out if you don't want these newbies, because they're moldable, they're coachable, they're eager, they're hungry. It's just like anything else. Like, you got to pick right. Everybody that graduates from our school is not for everybody's salon. You have to determine in your salon, what is the right fit for you? What are the criteria and the personality traits, and what is it that you're looking for that would be the right fit? Do you have a good culture that this person would fit in? That's a huge part, because culture is a big deal in our schools. And, a lot of times they will go someplace that they might have a great education program, but if there's no solid culture there, we all know that if you don't plan a culture will evolve on its own.
Happens anyway.
Yeah.
Starts with the owner.
Yeah. So hopefully you're making your culture intentional, and that you're choosing the right people, the right fit. So I take it back to that. You got to pick correctly.
If you want to dig deeper into improving your relationship with money as a creative professional, go to millionairehairstylistpodcast.com, create a free student account, and you can access over 4 hours of free financial lessons on topics like calculating exactly what financial freedom would look like for you as a creative professional. Go to millionairehairstylistpodcast.com, create your free account today.
So say I'm a salon owner and I'm just getting started and I want to develop a great culture. What are the questions that I should be asking that I need answers to help me develop a great culture in my business?
First of all, I think it starts with the salon owner. What's important to you? What's important to you? What do you stand for? What do you believe in? What are your values? And then build on that. If great customer service is important to you, then that should be one of your core values. If being on time and getting along and having a great attitude is important to you, that should probably be one of your core values. If having fun, if that's important, that should probably be one of your core values. How about work-life balance? That's important. It should be one of your core values. So that's kind of how we approach it. Ours is when people come first, success will follow.
That's right. I love that JP quote.
I love that.
No, is that
right.
JP?
That's
JP,
I was born on
JP
that.
said that.
I was born with that. Absolutely. Yeah. So we just take it right over into our salon culture. And it works because it's so true. People don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Right.
That's right. That's very true. I couldn't agree more. And I think that there's, let's say a salon owner they write these things down and they define what's valuable to them, and they're struggling to get people on board. How do you maintain the standards within your culture in your businesses?
Sit. It's coaching. It's all about coaching, because people they're going to make mistakes. They're going to make discoveries. People are going to fall down, but it's how you pick them up. It's having those courageous conversations. Sometimes when not having the conversation at all is worse than having the conversation, because, then people start making up movies in their own head, and it makes a small situation way out of control, when all you had to do was have that conversation right up front and say, hey, this is not working. How can we fix it? How can I assist you in making this right and making this better? Let's put together a plan of attack so that this moves in the right direction.
NeCole, I'm curious to see if you kind of experience the same thing. As I talk to business owners, and it's obvious in the way that you carry yourself. You're a very seasoned coach. When people are saying like, oh, I can't get people to do this or show up on time, or I can't get them to do this, what I find is that most of these people know what to do, and they're asking the question like, what do I do? And inevitably, they know what to do, which is you need to have hard conversations, and they won't do it. How do you so let's say you've got a salon manager, you have to get them to go have hard conversations. How do you approach these hard conversations, and how do you make sure your staff is confronting things, that need to be confronted?
Hold them accountable. They have to be held accountable. At the end of the day, if you're in leadership, the buck stops with you. Like, you're in charge. If it's not happening, I'm coming to you. And you can't tell me, well, they won't do it. Okay, well, Either it's a won't or a can't. Now we got to figure out which one it is first. If it's a can't, then it's a training issue. So let's train them. Let's get them some more training. If it's a won't, it's probably not the best place for them.
An attitude issue.
I mean, really, I mean, I don't mean to oversimplify it, but it really is just that simple.
It is that simple. I love that you put that into two options. So you said it's either they can't, which I love to have a simple model to weigh decisions against or to gauge performance. Like you say, KPIs. In this case, the KPIs are two things. It's either they can't and you know what to do, or they won't. And in that case, you know what to do. It's
you
really
still know what to do.
Options. I love that simplicity.
In both cases, you know what to do.
Yeah, in both cases, you know what to do.
Yeah.
I love that.
You do one-on-ones with employees, I think I've heard you say. And I understand as well that you have worked and I want to get a little bit into the business side as well as we continue the conversation, but just staying on the employee and the management side, you have these one-on-ones with employees, and you also have tried to boil down the individual performance metrics for employees down to 2 numbers.
Yes.
Tell us about that process and how you're managing and coaching people and using analytics maybe a little bit as part of that.
Sure. We work with the basically 2 numbers 2 KPIs in particular, and that's your client count and that's your average ticket price. So your client count, I mean, those 2 things directly affect your paycheck, period. You know, if the more clients you do, obviously the more money you make. The higher your average ticket, the more money you're going to make. I mean, so if you want to see a direct result in your paycheck, increase those 2 KPIs, and everything else supports it. You know, the request rate and the retention and all of those things, those support those 2 numbers. But if you directly want to affect your paycheck and how much money you want to bring home, increase those 2 numbers.
I love that. That's something very similar we do in our businesses, which we try to zero or try to narrow things down to what is the one thing this role is trying to accomplish. And from there, if they're not accomplishing it, you should be able to drill down. Like you're just kind of saying, like, okay, you are losing clients. Like how many clients you had last year and this year, you've lost 50% of them. Okay, let's dive into why that's a problem. But if you're monitoring those 2 top numbers, you can sort of look at the other numbers afterward. You don't have to manage 50 of them a day.
Exactly. And those are easy, especially for the newbies. They need it like bite size. You can't give them a whole pizza. They got to just one bite at a time. You know?
Yeah. And just a piece of pepperoni and cheese. Let's just start with pepperoni and cheese. We'll get to the fancy stuff later.
That's right. Yes. You know, I mean, because at the end of the day, they're really like, I need gas money. Okay. Right. Well, then we need some more clients. You know, I need to be able to have lunch. Okay. Well, then let's up that ticket price.
I love that. Yeah. It's not like, what's your average lifetime customer value so that we can determine your maximum daily ad spend.
You lose them.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know. I just want to
like, what? Yeah.
I don't care.
Can I ask actually, but it's funny, Cash, that you bring up ad spend, because obviously, NeCole, one of the things that's really changed, for instance, is Instagram, right? And the degree to which individual stylists have a role to play in driving demand for their own service, even if they're operating within a larger salon environment. So I'm curious about, as someone who is both, by the way, we didn't mention this, we talked about your school. You teach business classes within your own school, which we love that, because we talk about the lack of business education in the hair industry as a real problem. That's one of the reasons we exist, is trying to help bridge that gap for people that feel that they haven't learned enough about the business side. But when you think about the shift in focus and responsibility from the salon doing the marketing to individual stylists and how that affects their own brand, how have you navigated that transition over these last 10, 15 years? And how does it affect your conversations with people about their performance and about their contribution to the success of the salon and themselves as stylists?
Well, you know what? It really is. It helps. Well, first of all, it starts back in school. You know, they have to have a professional page in school, and we help them navigate. You know, we encourage them to post every week, and so it's kind of getting them in the habit. And then we kind of guide them, because we repost their stuff, but they know we're not going to repost it if it's not good stuff. Only the good stuff is going to get reposted. So
that's right.
It encourages them to be creative with their reels and their photo dumps and all of those things, because you're selling yourself. That's why I love Beacon so much, because it really it's a project that's a marketing project that's going to sell themselves. Like, that's how they're selected. And
tell us about Beacon. I don't think I actually know what that is.
Oh, Beacon it's a student competition that PBA puts on every year.
Oh, okay.
And they select 150 future professionals from throughout North America. And basically what they have to do is put together a marketing piece that's promoting themselves. And they can be as creative as they want, but they have to be able to download it and send it digital.
Mm-hmm.
And they select 150 throughout all of North America. And, we put a lot of energy into that because it is so important. That's your brand, so we spend a lot of time talking about that and talking about how to promote yourself on social media and in person, but particularly in social media, because you can get put up a reel and it hit 30,000 views easy, so that's the importance of it. And, I'll use my daughter, for instance. She's brilliant at it. To the point where now she's got clients that are coming from literally all over the country, flying in, getting their hair done. And she's in Cleveland.
Amazing.
And it really
That's music to our ears.
Yeah, it's right. It's from her social media. So it's possible. And I see it happening all the time. It's very possible. So last year we had 15 future professionals that got selected out of our 2 schools.
Wow.
So cool.
Yeah, we were very, very proud.
The flip side of that is that you also, what we're hearing more and more is that stylists or students coming out of schools, more and more, it seems, are more interested in owning their own salon. They're more interested in having their own business. They're more interested in I'm ready. I mean, maybe not immediately after school, but there's just that idea of I want to have my own thing. Or, you've talked about chair hopping. So how do you navigate that aspect of it, which is, they're promoting themselves on an individual basis. They're building their own brand, which might exist within your salon, but they are kind of creating their own mini business that then maybe they do want to take and go put together a suite, or they want to open a salon. And one of the things I'm fascinated to hear more from you about you is seems like you've really learned how to maybe adapt to that and how to encourage that and find a way to make that work for you as a business owner as well. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. We have a hybrid model that, we had salons years ago, and just like every other salon owner, our nemesis was, the booth rental. It was, creeping out in the middle of the night. Don't tell anybody. It was never a good situation for anybody, so we just figured if you can't beat them, join them. So we actually purchased a building, and one portion of the building is our employee-based salon. And then they actually share kind of a vestibule lobby, if you will. And on the other side of the building are suites. And we have 9 studios.
Wow.
Well,
yeah. And
this is fascinating. I have so many questions. Jordan, you were going to say something?
No, keep going, NeCole. So tell us how this works.
Yeah. It works out really well. The goal is we have a career path for them, because so often, people they build up their clientele, and then they say, okay, I've made all this money. Now I want to go and own my own. I want a booth rental. I want a studio. And it's like, okay, well,
do it right there.
Right. Well, and not only that, but one of the things that Orlando, my husband and I, we teach in school is we go over a profit and loss statement, a salon owner. And, we go in and we show them how changing something as small as, having 6%, which is the benchmark for your rent, going from 6% to, let's say you've got this hot location that you just had to have, is 15%.
Yeah.
Now, look what that did to your bottom line. Something as simple as not keeping track of your back bar and, your costs. Look what it did to your bottom line. So they see now by not managing those line items, how it affects your margins and huge, huge way. So of course, a lot of them are like, "Oh, I didn't realize that."
Yeah, I mean, what?
Never mind then.
Yeah. I don't know what beauty student is saying like, okay, so I'm facing they're facing a career choice between paying the commission, let's say 40 to 60% or whatever it is, and then trying to deduce the operating costs of a business that they've never run and compare whether the extra time of operating the business is going to achieve a greater margin than just paying the commission. And I don't know a single beauty professional who has been able to accomplish that math out front successfully. It's just like, now you having owned the salon and you having done it before, you can say, you know what, over here, you're going to be paying rent, and that is going to be 15% of your P&L. And then you're going to have managing your back bar, and you're going to have to do all these other things. Who's going to handle your bookings and your DMs and, whatever it is. And it's surprisingly a lot. And so I would love to hear from your setup is so unique. I love how you have taken your school and now you have salons and you have suites. And so it seems like you have a very...
It's an empire. Let's be honest. You built an empire. NeCole,
a very well-designed stream of talent flowing through with options for that talent and for you to profit kind of no matter what career choice they make. Tell me about the thought behind the school, feeding the salons, feeding the suites.
Right.
Tell me about how this is all designed.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's so funny because one of the biggest misconceptions is that, everybody wants to come and work for you, NeCole. You have an unfair advantage. Well, that's not necessarily true because I'm kind of like mom at the school, and just like your own mom, you're like, oh, God, I'm so sick of hearing her talk. They want to go out and spread their wings and you know what I mean? So we do have some that come. But, we hire, believe it or not, we get quite a few that come from the vocational schools, too.
Okay.
Because we're active in going there and speaking. And so they know who we are. And, we keep all of that available. So all of our team is not from our school.
That's so wise.
Yeah, but we do have some. But the cool thing is, when they come, they already know what to expect. And we encourage them, come and intern, come and shadow, because it's not for everybody. We intentionally, just like our school is not for everybody. I tell them on day one, we're not the cheapest game in town. Get your money's worth.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But I mean, it sounds like they're getting a lot for that investment.
They
they're going to be taught
Only
by you.
If they go get it. We don't force feed anybody.
Right. They have to put in the work.
And so we're very, very upfront is again, having those courageous conversations and, that helps everybody. But back to the salon, I think it's important because now they see, wow, you're actually doing what you're telling us at the school.
Right.
Yeah. This is what it takes. So it's not an accident when you become a 6-figure hairstylist. We just gave you the blueprint. All you got to do is follow it.
We talk about blueprints. That's such a great, but so I understand as part of your story as well is that the real estate side, this is something I think you said Orlando, your husband was pushing for.
Yes.
And I think that it's another kind of holy grail we've learned with our members, with the people that we're coaching, which is everyone is kind of aware that real estate is a really important piece of this puzzle. How did that develop for you as a salon owner, starting to integrate property ownership into your model?
You know what? It's a game changer. It's a game changer, particularly if you live someplace where real estate is reasonable. That's one of the beauties. People you live in Ohio? Why Ohio? Because the cost of living is amazing here.
And you can do things like this.
I can't. I'm in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, so I'm hurting.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is, but it's a game changer. It was a game changer for us. What it does, it allows you to have leverage, in terms of, what you're charging, your overhead, all of those things. You're now not competing with somebody down the street that is like, for instance, if somebody wanted to come in and try and compete with what we're doing, it would affect their margins much more than it would affect our margins.
Mm-hmm.
Because our margins are able to be lower, even though our prices, we're still a high-end salon. So we still have higher prices, but our profit margin is a lot stronger because we have much lower overhead.
And you're investing in your business. We say this, I own a nationwide real estate investing company, so I'm huge on real estate. And we say this to people all the time. The integration of property ownership, real estate into your business has so many beneficial impacts. Control being one of them. Your landlord's not going to come and kick you out, and you're not going to get, a 30% price hike, out of the blue, and you're forced to adjust your entire business model off of it. So you get the control aspect, but then you also get the tax benefits, the depreciation. There's so many secondary and tertiary benefits because you can be a salon owner and a real estate investor like you are. So it's like when you own real estate in your business, there are so many amazing benefits. And I would love to know what you would say to somebody who's maybe in a bigger market, maybe like a California or a Dallas or a Miami or something. What would you say to them if they're considering ownership versus renting? What questions should they be asking while weighing that?
You know what? I would say, first of all, before the questions, because that's really more of an Orlando question, but in terms of why the ownership, it's another revenue stream. And as hairstylists, particularly as salon owners, we already know the small margin that we're working with in terms of profit margin. So anytime you can add another revenue stream to that just helps. Not to mention, it's a way to create generational wealth for your family. So again, as a hairstylist, you're now adding another, piece to the puzzle and adding more to your portfolio. Not only, as you said, Cash, not only are you a business owner, but now you're an investor, a real estate investor, and you're investing in yourself.
Yeah, I love the way you put that. It is such a powerful perspective when you talk about building generational wealth as a hairstylist. Mm-hmm. A lot of hairstylists, including myself, see one path to wealth, and that's I always have to keep making more money.
Yeah,
I always have to be earning, and I was never taught this, or I didn't have a mentor like you when I first started, that you can accumulate assets as a hairstylist. Mm-hmm. And let's say you own 5 salons. Mm-hmm. At any point, you could shut those salons down if you wanted and rent out the commercial space. You could put them under management, right? You could put them under other management and step away. You own the real estate. You're getting the tax benefits. You can produce passive cash flow from them if you wanted to move away in lots of different ways. And I just think people sort of forget that wealth goes way beyond earning money on a paycheck. 100%. And it sounds like, and you've got businesses and real estate, and you've developed a portfolio of assets that are building generational wealth for you. And I love that. I feel like I just made a new best friend.
Yeah.
It's amazing to hear another hairstylist just speaking the same language of investing and business ownership and asset creation and generational wealth. It's so refreshing. Are these conversations you're having with people in as beauty students as well? What are you talking about with beauty students about wealth and real estate and that kind of stuff?
We talk about all of it. We work with community.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're going to be on our podcast this season.
Oh, perfect. Well, we have the community for schools, and we offer that in our schools. And it's almost like a community club, and literally
within the school, so people can opt in.
Within the school.
Got it.
Within the school. So literally every week we have one person that leads a team member that leads the conversation. And of course they go through it. The future professionals go through it. We go through it as a group. But for those that are really, really interested, we have a round table every week, and they take an hour and they have these discussions. And oh my goodness, it's so cool. Unfortunately, I don't get a chance to sit in all of them. But when I do get a chance to get into it, it's awesome because they ask amazing questions. And I mean, they're so on top of it. So it really is refreshing to see. And my goal is to have more people excited and interested in having those conversations. But I mean, everybody gets it at different stages of their lives, and I understand that. But when you get it, man, it's real, because we also talk about, come on, you're not going to be 21 forever,
That's huge.
being on your feet, doing hair. Hard. It is. Yeah. It's grueling on the body. It's grueling on the body. And people ask me all the time, when are you going to retire? Like, I'm 56 years old. Like, and retire and do what? Like, I'm loving what I'm doing. This is awesome. Yeah. I will do this.
But you're also not if you needed to take a week off, if you had arthritis, I mean, any of the things that hairstylists deal with as they're in the later parts of their career, it's like you have the options.
Yeah.
That other people maybe they're not thinking. We've learned this, that there's almost two perspectives that we find. You have younger hairstylists who are optimistic and excited and hungry, and they're not actually that interested in wealth or financial freedom, because they're just like, I'm making money. I'm raising my rates. I'm learning all these skills. I'm getting Instagram followers. But as people start to shift into salon ownership, as they start to shift into parenthood, as they start to shift into marriage, all the stages, as they hit 30, they start thinking, wait a second, where does this go? And how do I set myself up so that I have options later if I don't want to be behind the chair, or if I can't be behind the chair? I mean, Cash, you've told stories about being behind the chair with back problems and thinking, oh, this isn't going to work long term if I'm having a spasm and I'm not able to be on my feet.
I talked to hair. We kind of like approach hairstyling. I approached my hairstyling career in the beginning as though I would live forever and that I would always feel that way. It never even hit my mind that there needed to be some sort of exit strategy. But then as my career evolved and I started working with professional athletes, and I was working with Dwayne Wade at the time that this sort of like hit my mind, and he was retiring. And I was like, dude, you still look great. You still, an athlete. Like, why is he retiring? And it just didn't hit me that like athletes are trained from the beginning. Your career has a timestamp on it.
Got a shelf
and
life.
It's not something you want to be doing when you're 70. And so those careers have put programs into place for retirement, and they've helped the professional athletes like, manage their money and kind of calculate the length of their career and the risks. We hairstylists, have like most of us, except for the people working for you and getting the education that they're getting at your school, are completely stuck. And so they hit 30 and they've been standing for 8 years, and they start going, ouch. What would this look like in another 10 years? And they start thinking about it very late. Yeah, but absolutely. I think it's like kind of what you're doing in your school, what Tom's doing, what we're doing, trying to improve that awareness for like financial acumen and education and business education earlier, so that you don't have all those lost years and you don't go, oh my gosh, now I've got to scramble and perform financially at a rate I'd never have been able to before. And it sounds like you've got a school where you're teaching technical skills in very little hours. You said you're not going to make experts. You're teaching financial and business education within those hours on top of that. And to me, it just sounds like these are the types of schools. These are the types of professionals we want coming out of schools that I would hire. Now I'm an all newbie type person. I'm like, give me the newbies. That's me. I love to hire green and integrate into the way we do things. And I think it's one of the best ways to go about it. I'm super optimistic about the next generation. Now you mentioned KPIs being super, super important at the beginning of this. And we talked about a couple of them in business. In your managing your salon suites. So if you're a suite owner and you're managing rental, and this is sort of a real estate investment. Say you're a suite, you're a hairstylist, you're working out of one suite and you're renting out 3 others. What are some of the numbers that suite owners should be managing in their KPIs if they're not a commissioned salon?
You know what? They should be same thing, client count and average ticket price, because that's going to directly affect their income. But they also have to look at, everything that's on a P&L. I just happen to pull my P&L right here. We're looking at all of those expenses, your payroll, if you have an assistant, if you have somebody in there helping you, your processing fees, your education, you gotta, that's a biggie, that's a must. You have to do education in order to keep going. And also, what does your exit strategy look like? Because two things that we ask our future professionals two goals. How much money do you ultimately want to make behind the chair? And what age do you want to be done from behind the chair?
Wow. You just asked that right out.
Just right out front, because you got to figure it out. What are the
answers you often hear?
Thinking about it. Pardon?
Yeah, what are the answers you get? I'm so curious.
Well, of course, everybody wants to be a 6-figure stylist. So, okay, That's good. We got a blueprint for that.
You kind of need to be these days. Yeah.
You can do that. But if you're 18 years old, if you say 30, or you say 40, whatever the age is, you have to start working towards what that looks like. So at least in their minds, they start thinking, particularly as they start getting older, what are some other things that I should be doing, that I could be looking at? What are some other opportunities? Because I know I look back when I was younger and I didn't really know what my end date behind the chair was.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah. You didn't even think about that. It's like, I'll figure it out when I get there.
Yeah.
But, at some point, and I can remember specifically, it was when I became a salon owner and I was trying to run the business. I was trying to do guests. I was trying to do all of these things. And I'm like, okay, something's got to give. I can't do all of this. And then I had 2 small kids and I'm like, okay, this is nuts. And then you throw in, oh yeah, by the way, can you open up a school? What?
Thanks, man. Yeah.
The inconvenient tap on the shoulder from Mr. Clayball.
Yes.
So you have to kind of figure it out. For me, it was very, specific. Once we had the school, we had the salon, we had the small children. Orlando was not on full time on board yet. And then 18 months after we opened the Columbus location school. So we were like, okay, something's got to give. But that was the point where I realized, okay, I can't be effective behind the chair. I have to come from behind the chair so that I can run these businesses.
Yeah. Either failure forces you out of the chair, like failure for body, health, whatever, or success will force you out.
Something. Yeah. It's just like anything else. You got to have an exit strategy. Or at least start thinking about what that exit strategy looks like. So when the opportunities do become available, then you can take advantage of it.
Yes. Let's live here for a second, because this is such a crucial part of and I think you've even mentioned the E-myth in past, NeCole, this is that part. This is that, I'm going to blank on this expression. There's an expression they use in human anthropology about civilizations that become multiplanetary and how that's like a dividing line of whether or not they're going to survive or not, in big thinking about the galaxies, right? But it's the same thing on a business level. It's you either get stuck doing it all yourself, or you figure out how to build a business that you manage that you can grow beyond yourself. And that's almost always the dividing line between really frustration over years and years and years, and actually being able to sort of transcend and succeed, speaking broadly. So tell us a bit more about that, because I know that means 2 things that I think a lot of hairstylists and salon owners struggle with, because it's not common to them. One is the business side, and I'd love to hear more about how you started to navigate really running the business, and also the management and the organizational structure side, the people that you have to start putting in place to manage this business for you, because you can't do it all. So tell us about those 2 sort of frontiers and what it was like to navigate those and explore those and what you've learned along the way.
Sure. It was one of those things, like the story that I just shared, it got overwhelming. And thank God I had the wherewithal to know that, okay, I need help, first of all. I can't do it all. Something is going to suffer if I don't. Either the business is going to suffer or my children's rearing is going to suffer, and both were way too important not to pay attention to. So bringing people on board, and this goes back to picking the right people. Like, I don't mind not being the smartest person in the room. And in fact, I relish in that. Like, I know what I'm good at, but more importantly, I know what I'm not good at. So I think it's one of my specialty is making sure that I find the right person that is brilliant in that area. Like, I want you to be smarter than me in financial aid. I'm the absolute worst director that you could have in a school. But I know this about myself. But I have one of the most brilliant directors.
Love that.
And she was in our second class.
As a student?
As a student. She was in our second class.
Wow.
Yeah, 20 years ago. And when she graduated, I asked her, I said, what is it that you want to do? When we were doing her exit interview, I said, what is it that you want to do with your career? And she looked me right in my face. She said, I want your job. I was like, great. And I hired her.
That's amazing.
She was organized. She was detail oriented. She had a great personality. She was coachable. Now, she didn't know, excuse my language, shit from Shinola when it came to running a business or running a school. But I could teach her that.
Right.
And she started at the front desk. And then she became a learning leader. And then she became our education leader. And then she worked in enrollment. And then she worked in financial aid. And now she runs a place. But she understands every single department in our school like the back of her hand. She's amazing. She's an amazing coach. She knows how to pick the right people in different areas. She knows what area needs what criteria or what qualifications. I mean, she's brilliant. She's brilliant. Our compliance leader, another one, amazing. We actually had her in the wrong place. We had her as a director. And she realized quickly, okay, this is not the role for me. Like, she's brilliant. Just wasn't brilliant in that role.
So we're talking about organizational design here, which is something I don't think a lot of people, small businesses, know much about or have much experience with. But when you're looking at organizational design, you're thinking like, what is our hierarchy of, like, what's the chain of command? Who reports to who, the line of communication and accountability. And then what are the roles within the business that are needed to run this business effectively at the best margin that we can, right? You don't want employee bloat, team member bloat. We got too many people. It sounds like over the last 20 plus years, you've learned some really valuable lessons, which I'd love to pick your brain on, about the right people in the right seats. And you talked about the girl with the attention to detail. She was organized. And then you put her in all of these roles. And I'll venture to say, I put a person in a similar role like this, that as they went into every department, they cleaned and organized and made everything function, every one department at a time before they ran the company. And then you've got different roles, different people with different personalities and different roles. When you're hiring, you're recruiting, and you're putting people in the right seats, what are the tools or processes that you use to make sure you're putting the right people in the right seats?
Well, it's interesting. One of the things that we do for our interviews, and I can't think of the name of it, just slipped my mind. But the interviews that we do, we ask a question, an open-ended question, and there's a name for it, and it'll come to me in a minute. But we ask an open-ended question, and then we let them tell us the story. Smart. Instead of us doing all the talking. Because at first, we were the adverse. We were the one practically selling them on
You're just selling the whole time. Yeah.
They're like, okay. And we're like, boy, that was a great interview. No, it wasn't. You did all the
You're like a nervous guy on a date.
You didn't hear the word they had, you didn't know anything. And like the resumes, people make them say what they want them to say.
Right.
But when you do an interview and, give me an opportunity, tell me a time where you had to organize an event or something, and what did you do to make it successful? Explain that to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm quiet and I let them talk. And either they can think on their feet and they have an example, or they don't.
Yeah.
But
it's a hard one to fake too, because if they weren't really involved in organizing it, they're not going to be able to
they won't know the numbers.
Yeah, they won't know the numbers. They won't know the details. And so that's a great...
Unless it really happened. If it really happened, then they know. And then you can see the expression in their face, and they're excited, and they're like, oh, and then we did this, and this.
Right.
You're like, wow, that's awesome.
Yep.
So, we actually took a course. Gosh, I wish I could think of the name.
Well, if you remember it after the show, you can always shoot us a text.
Yes,
and we'll put it in the show notes.
Thank you. But it's awesome that literally that really changed the whole trajectory of how we interview and the people that we were able to bring on board, because we had a more realistic understanding of what they were capable of. And then we do 90 days.
What was that?
We do 90 days. We hire them for 90 days.
There it is. That's smart.
And you'll know days whether or not they're going to work out or not.
So important to have that qualification period with qualification standards for the roles, like a probation period, whatever you want to call it. There's so many people are scared to hire, one, because they don't know their numbers and they don't know the impact the hire will have on the business's financials from a revenue perspective. And they are not sure about how the cost benefit will weigh out. A lot of people in the salon owners, small business owners are very shaky on, well, can I hire this person? How do I hire this person? And
you got
the interviewing process, you have to know your numbers, right? You've said it before. You've got to know your numbers before you go out and start paying people to do jobs, because you need to know what the job is going to produce, and you need to know what it's going to cost. So if you're interviewing, I have probably fired over 100 people, because I maybe way more than that. I'm trying to not make myself sound like an idiot, but I've made a ton of bad hiring choices over the years. Those are much, much fewer and far between now. But I learned that there's some good interviewers, and then there's good team members, and those are not always the same people. When you find out you've made a bad hire, tell me about how you handle that.
You know what? One of my mentors, Luke Jacobellis, he was the CEO of JP and Paul Mitchell. And Luke told me something that I will never forget. He told me this early in my career. He said, hire slow, fire fast.
Love that.
And that is it in a nutshell. He was so simple with the way he ran business and his philosophy on business. It was simple. And that is so, so true. So that's exactly what we do now. We probably over interview, if I'm being honest, but we want to get as many people's insight as possible, so that we can make sure that we're all saying and hearing the same thing and seeing the same thing. Yeah. And then, we're very transparent about what the job entails. It's almost to the point where we're almost talking them out of it. Because it's look,
might as well set the bar high, make them understand it's not
it's
what's
not
involved.
Going to be a walk in the park. Yeah. But it's fun. We enjoy what we do, but we work harder.
We learned that lesson as well. It's such an important one to sort of almost not oversell, but correctly sell the role and the difficulties of the role, and set the expectation that it's for hard workers, people who want to succeed, people who want to move up in their career, people who are willing to put in hours and and take a problem, solve a problem, whatever the role is, right? Rather than being and this benefit and that benefit. And oh my gosh, when you play the reluctant employer who's kind of I don't know if you want this job.
You probably don't.
It's crazy. People will be like, no, I do. Yeah, give it to me. And in that interview, you sort of set the standards of performance and expectation right then and there. We're here to work with people who want to succeed and win, and that's not easy.
It's not. Competency-based interview. That's what that's called.
Tell me more about that.
Interesting. Yeah.
The competency-based interview. That's basically, what I explained in terms of, we give them a question of, tell me about a time when,
Oh, right. Yep.
XYZ, and then they have to give you the scenario. You can't use the word we. You have to say I. We want to know what you did specifically. Even when you're talking about a team sport or a team, you can use personal, you can use the job, you can use whatever you want, whatever area of your life you want. But we want to know what you did to make this specific thing successful. Tell me about a difficult conversation that you had to have as a supervisor that went well, and tell me about one that didn't go so well. What happened? What would you have done different?
I love that.
Yeah, there's tons of questions like that.
Yeah,
and
it's
literally
structured
right on the spot, and it's so interesting. Sometimes you get people like we've had people like literally break down into tears. Like, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. They're like, no, I'm fine. Just give me a minute. But it really draws out so many raw emotions, because for some people that was a really, really tough time. Tell me about a time that you had to coach a person that was a good friend, or you had to share information about a good friend that you didn't really want to, but I want to find out what kind of organizational awareness do you have.
And you adjust the question based on the role, I presume. So sometimes you're asking about leadership or management or planning or organization. And so you can use that structure to ask. I love that.
Yeah. Instead of asking somebody, what quality, what are your worst qualities?
What are your weaknesses?
We ask them, tell us about a time where you didn't get a good review
I love that.
And what was it and how did you respond?
I love that one. That's a great one. I think the framework of tell us about a time is a great interview strategy if you're using specific circumstances. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, and it's so funny because it's so right on the spot. People are like, oh, I can't believe I just told you that.
They don't see it coming. That's not on the list of questions they're preparing for when they're looking in the mirror that morning.
Yeah.
It's great. That's a tremendous question, or a tremendous framework. We're approaching the end of our time with you, NeCole. And again, this has been so instructive, and I just love your perspective. There's two other components of the ecosystem and of the story and your journey that I want to touch on. One is partnerships, and one is mentors. Coaches. Well, mentors too, but coaches and mentors. So let's start with partnerships for a second. You mentioned Orlando, your husband, and clearly you guys are a dynamic duo. And we talk a lot about the fact Cash coined this. I don't know if Cash actually coined this. You just said it recently, and I want to give him credit for it, which is that solopreneur is slowpreneur. It's like trying to do it all by yourself is a great way to fail. And I'm curious, tell us about the partnerships in your life. Maybe it's Orlando, maybe there's others you want to tell us about, but who are the people that have been really connected, not just employees, but people who have really been connected to your success and that you've really teamed up with?
You know what? Well, Paul Mitchell. Paul Mitchell has been an amazing partner for us. Like I said, 6 months out of beauty school, I've been connected with them, and they've been a partner in my career in terms of me as an educator and teaching me how to be a professional in this industry, and, helping me build great relationships with people in this industry. So I would say for my career, that is probably one of my biggest partnerships. But of course, in life and in business, Orlando has been a significant partner. It's funny because we are so polar opposites. I mean, we could not be further not alike. Then it's really interesting. But we have learned. I mean, we've been married 34 years.
Amazing.
And we have learned to really be able to embrace our differences and honor each other's differences, even though sometimes it is extremely frustrating. It can be. It's like any other partnership. We don't always see eye to eye, but we always bring a different perspective. And I think when said this. If everybody in the room is agreeing and always agreeing, somebody's not needed.
Yeah, very true.
So,
Redundancy.
Yeah. So we disagree a lot.
I love that.
You know what? The business is better because of it. Our relationship is better because of it. Our child rearing, well, our kids are 30 and 28 now, but you know, our whole life, I think, benefited from the fact that we are so different. And we both bring very, very different skill sets and opinions and mindsets to the table. So that's I think that's very helpful.
Significant other is probably, in my personal opinion, the most powerful partnership I've had in my life. Yeah. And I from your affirmation there, it sounds like it was the same situation for you. For me, there's just been no more powerful partner in business, in life, in everything, every aspect of life. I think it's either a power move or it's a life destroyer. You choose poorly and your whole life.
It can destroy you. Yeah, it can. It can. You know what? And we tell our kids that all the time. Like, who you choose to be with and marry or be with as your life partner, that's probably the most important decision that you'll make in your life. And it's so true.
I got 4 kids. We tell our kids all the time, if there's one thing we just want you to get right, it's who you spend your life with. Like that's the one most important thing. And that comes from, my wife, and her experience with a previous marriage. And so she's got personal experience with a bad choice. And obviously I did great. I chose perfect the first time. And,
you did.
best decision I ever made. I just get it right on the first try. But we've only been married 10 years. You've been married 34 years. A wealth of relationship and partnership knowledge, talking here today. If you were to give advice to young professionals who are single and maybe considering partnership in a powerful way, which is that permanent life partner, what advice would you give them?
Premarital counseling.
Interesting.
I think sometimes people wait until after they get married for counseling. And I think premarital is so important because it will bring things up and questions that maybe you hadn't discussed or you hadn't thought about. And just it lets you know if you're on the same page. It's important to know if that person, when stuff goes through the rough times, because there are going to be rough times, just like there's going to be great times. It's going to be rough times. Mm-hmm. The great times is not what you should be worried about. It's how you're going to get through the rough times. If you can get through those, life is good. Mm-hmm. But it's getting through those rough patches. Like, I don't know of anybody that's ever gotten a divorce during the good times.
Right. Yeah.
Never happened.
Never happened. 0 times ever has a great marriage ended in divorce.
Never. It's always a bad time. So that's how you have to figure out, how are you going to communicate? How are you going to navigate through those tough times? Because it's not if, it's when.
Yeah,
that's right.
I mean, I think it's worth also emphasizing that Cash happens to be in business with your significant other. Not everyone's going to find themselves in that kind of situation.
Or nor should they.
nor should they. Some people really shouldn't. Yeah. I'm dating a therapist. So, I don't think we're going to be in business together if we decided to pursue something more long term, because I'm in film and production and this, so not the same line of work. But I think that there's a principle that we also like to emphasize, which is maybe it isn't your life partner, maybe it is your business partner. Cash and I are business partners. This is a business. This is a community we built together, and we. I think there's a lot of similarities. There's a truism of relationships, good, strong relationships. Cash, I hope you don't mind me saying, I think we have a really strong and powerful relationship. And that is that we aren't the same. We don't think the same. We don't see things the same way. We were talking about this in a recent student workshop. Like, Cash is a visionary. He has ideas. He wants to try new things. There's never a time when Cash is afraid of a new idea, ever. And I am an executor, integrator, make it happen.
I knew we were good.
And most of the time, I don't want to hear your new idea. I want to execute the idea we already said we were going to come up with last week.
Hello, Orlando. I think I know you.
Really? I'm Orlando in this situation?
You're
amazing.
Orlando.
but I don't think we would be here without it because, and again, I'm going to speak for the Orlandos in the room. It's like you need that checks and balances, and it's not the person who's always stomping out the bad ideas. It's just the person who's like balancing, like, okay, what can we execute? And the other person's pushing, and I need the push. I need to be like, okay, let's try that thing. Okay, let's do that thing. Okay, yeah, let's try that. And it's worked very well thus far. Knock on wood.
Yeah, you like I said, you literally just explained Orlando and I to a T.
It's the visionary integrator relationship. And I think it's a powerful concept for people who are in business or even who have ideas of what they may want to do. I really, really believe this full on. You can't have two visionaries, and because it is so unlikely that those visions are going to align perfectly over the course of 34 years.
Or that they'll get done.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm just imagining two Cashes in a room, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah, we would.
No.
Yeah,
it's so funny. We always say, "I create the vision, and Orlando shows us how we can afford the vision."
Yeah, I love that. I love it.
Yeah,
visionary integrator.
But I'll speak to the integrators for a second. I'll speak to the Orlandos in the audience, which is to say, like, here's what I've learned, because it's easy it's easy to make fun of the visionaries, like, oh, you're always pie in the sky. What I've also learned is, like, you don't have to say yes or no to every conversation. Sometimes it's just about like, let the visionary vision and
just let me talk.
Ask them some questions about it and explore, and then maybe find the things in what they're saying. It's like, okay, well, why don't we try that? Because we could do that tomorrow. Okay, so you want to do this, and this. Well, I could send an email and we could test that. So it's like you have to let go a little bit of your like, ooh, I don't know how we can execute that. And you have to want to see the vision through, because you need it, and that you need that push. So you sort of have to lean into it a little bit. And sometimes it's not about saying anything, and sometimes it's about just like, okay, you know what? From what you've said, I think we could try this next. Do you want to give that a shot? And then boom, we're off to the races to the next thing. And that has so much. I mean, just to give you a little mini story here, when Cash and I first got together to start the Millionaire Hairstylist, this is a Win Claybaugh story, by the way. Win Claybaugh said, do you know what you need to do is you need to go start talking to hairstylists, because Cash, you're a hairstylist. You've been very successful, but you're going to want to teach hairstylists, and you got all this insight and you've learned all these things, but just go start talking to hairstylists. And so, I was ready to go start working on a course, but Cash calls me and says, hey, I think we need to start doing conversations on Clubhouse. I think we need to start having conversations with hairstylists and just try some of these ideas that we have out. And I was like, okay, I can see us doing that next month. He's like, I was thinking tomorrow night. and I was like, oh, okay. And that was the first 6 months was just Clubhouse once a week. And we did other things too. We launched the podcast and all these things. But it was from that willingness Cash had to just let go of what we thought we needed to do and try the scarier thing. And then me being like, all right, let's execute, let's try it. And we made it a system. We did. And there are people listening to this podcast today who were on those first calls with us and who responded to what we were saying and said, you need to do more of this. And we were able to find the things that people were really looking for in the conversation, rather than just, we could have spent 2 years in the dark and then launched some course that didn't mean anything to anyone if we hadn't taken the time to actually learn from the students, learn from the people that we wanted to be communicating with based on the insight that Cash wanted to bring to the conversation.
That's so true. That's so true. Yeah, sometimes you just got to jump.
You do. I know. I'm sure, NeCole, you and I probably throw people around all the time. Just like, what about this? What about that? We could do that. And sometimes it is about just letting us talk about it. Because then sometimes, I'm so quick. I sent Jordan an article this morning, and I was like, oh my gosh, look at this. He's like, that's from 2020. I was like, oh damn. It's like I thought that was an interesting idea, but it's kind of old now.
Right. Oh, that's hilarious! I'm telling you, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
God bless you, visionaries.
And you're inspired by like the littlest things. Like, wow, we could do.
Yes. Yeah. I'll tell you, meeting people like you, just connecting with other entrepreneurs, learning about their mindsets, hearing about you share, it's one of the most inspiring things. And it gives me so many ideas, and just, I love these experiences, just connecting with other entrepreneurs. Cause it's like, oh, I didn't think about it. And I would never thought about that. But then as soon as I hear one little twinge of advice, my mind is like, oh, no, we could do that. We could do that.
Oh yeah. I'm telling you, we're the same person. Exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Exactly. NeCole, this has been truly tremendous. Thank you for your time. If you're a hairstylist, if you're a creative professional, and you are interested in your financial well-being, remember to like and subscribe so that more episodes just like this one show up in your YouTube feed.